In fact, we should really be discussing criminal penalties for adultery. There'd be nothing unusual historically about dispensing prison time or fines or even corporal punishment for adulterers.
Hey guys, today we are looking at a clip by Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh will be discussing the Sarah Stock and Elijah Schaefer scandal. Matt Walsh is going to look into this scandal between Elijah Schaefer and Sarah Stock, and then he's going to look at some statistics regarding divorce rates, marriage, and Matt Walsh is then going to talk about the role that the courts and the legal system are playing in this process. Let's go ahead and we'll get into the clip.
You're also religious, correct?
Yeah, I'm a Christian.
Are you waiting until marriage?
Yep.
Have you always waited till marriage?
Yes.
You both are virgins, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
No shame, just...
Yeah.
Okay,
Right
cool.
on.
I said yes.
What's your body count?
It's 8. 4. I can give like a roundabout,
Sure.
like 120.
120, okay.
4.
4.
8. 0. 0.
0.
Whoa.
That's
Okay.
a lot of virgins.
Jake?
Surrounded by purity here.
Yeah.
Feel it rubbing off on me.
Now, the point of showing you this, all this stuff is not to gawk at the destruction of a marriage or to gossip about lurid details, of which there are plenty in this case. We could fill a whole show full of those details if we wanted to. We won't. Instead, I'll simply say that Milo Yiannopoulos has alleged with a substantial amount of evidence that Sarah was in fact sleeping with her boss, Elijah Schaefer, who runs a small conservative media company called Rift TV, up to the moment that she became engaged to another man named Will. So in other words, the allegation is that Sarah was cheating on her boyfriend and future fiance with her boss, who was a married man at the time with children. His wife is now divorcing him, apparently. And the allegation is backed by an audio recording, which Yiannopoulos obtained, though it's not clear how.
Now, listen, I'm not into cheating, but Milo Yiannopoulos will snitch just ready, very conveniently with a compromat, right after Elijah Schaefer is getting sued by Alexis Wilkins. Spidey sense alerted.
In response to all these allegations, Sarah didn't issue any kind of specific targeted denial. She didn't dispute the accuracy of the claims being made exactly. Instead, she posted the following message to her account on X. It says, quote, "A lot of what has been said about me is completely untrue. That being said, there are mistakes, unwise decisions I have made that I deeply regret. I have sinned. I apologize to everyone who has been scandalized by this. Please pray. Logging off now." Shortly afterwards, Sarah deleted her account entirely.
Pretty basic and predictable sidestepping of accountability. You know, hey, I did a lot of bad things. I'm real sorry to the people who are hurt by those bad things. I won't say what those bad things actually are. And also a lot of the bad things that you're saying I did, well, I didn't do those. We could sit here and cry over spilled milk, but this is a pretty common playbook for women who get caught cheating.
I consider the fact that as of the most recent data, roughly 70% of divorces are initiated by women. That's according to research from the American Sociological Association, but plenty of other sources agree on that point. In fact, the number rises to between 80 and 90% when you only look at highly educated women. Now, here's a quote from the American Sociological Association, to give you an idea of how they frame the data. Quote, "Study author Michael Rosenfeld, an associate professor of sociology at Stanford University, found that women initiated 69% of all divorces compared to 31% of men. In contrast, there was not a statistically significant difference between the percentage of breakups initiated by unmarried women and men. Women seem to have a predominant role in initiating divorces in the U.S. as far back as there is data from a variety of sources back to the 1940s, Rosenfeld said. I think that marriage as an institution has been a little bit slow to catch up with expectations for gender equality. And yet, if you ask women, they'll tell you exactly why they're getting divorced. If you take a look at the data, what it tells you is that the primary reasons that women give for divorcing their husbands include that they feel they aren't getting enough attention, their husband is holding back their career, that they, quote, grew apart. In other words, the woman got bored. And like Sarah Stock, apparently, they wanted to try something new. And they convinced themselves that there's nothing wrong with, giving another man a try. And there's nothing stopping these women from walking into a courtroom, telling the judge they're bored, and taking 50% of their husband's assets, along with alimony. Even in conservative states, they can get away with that. They can seize your home, they can seize your retirement account. They don't even have to lie about what they're doing. I mean, that's where the law is right now. Among other reasons, this is a major problem because marriage is directly tied to the continued existence of civilization. Plenty of data shows, as you might imagine, that marriage is directly linked to fertility rates, which seems pretty obvious. If we want to reverse population decline, then encouraging young people to get married is the way to do it. But it can be a tough sell for young men as long as the law remains so archaic and so obviously rigged against them. So why haven't any conservative states abolished no-fault divorce? Or at the very least, why haven't more states abolished the idea that women are entitled to 50% of their husband's assets, even if they've been cheating on him the entire time? As far as I can tell, in the vast majority of states, whether they're community property states or not, a woman can cheat on her husband and still receive half his assets. There are exceptions, including Texas, but this is the norm, and that needs to change. In most cases, women should get $0 if they initiate a divorce. In most cases, they should get nothing. In fact, in many cases, they should be fined for wasting the man's time. That's not a punitive solution. It's one we obviously need because the current system is pathological in how it destroys the lives of innocent young men. In fact, we should really be discussing criminal penalties for adultery. There'd be nothing unusual historically about dispensing prison time or fines or even corporal punishment for adulterers. I mean, what's unusual is having no such penalties in place at all. We are one of the few societies in history to not treat adultery as a criminal matter, and I see no evidence that our approach is in any way superior or brings about better results at all.
So I actually agree with Matt mostly. It's just that I don't think fines or prison time should be the result. I do think we should have laws against adultery. I really don't even think it should be legal for people to get divorced once they have children together. But I think that the punishment for adultery should be public shaming, like something like the stocks, where all of your peers see you, they know your crime, you have to be in front of them and experience social shame. That's the biggest deterrent of all. It doesn't cost any money, and it doesn't incentivize the government to start looking for problems so that it can put money in its own pocket, which is basically the backbone of the entire legal system right now. Also, I think it's important to note that laws don't just randomly transmutate like genetic code. There are people who changed those laws and made it so that women could take all this money from men. So we could just look in history and see who those people are and, I don't know, maybe see if there's a fifth column that's taken over our country and is trying to intentionally destroy our birth rates. I'm not sure. That's just an idea I have.
It's tempting to think that reversing this entire system is impossible, but it's not. And more to the point, there's reason to believe that in general, conservative women, in general, are much less of a danger on this front. Take a look at this data from the U.S. General Social Survey, which was republished by the Substack Age of Infowars. It shows that the average number of children that are being born to left-wing families in the United States is declining significantly, and significantly more rapidly than the number of children who are being born to conservative families. In other words, left-wing birth rates are falling far faster than conservative birth rates. Conservatives are presumably involved in more stable and fulfilling marriages, the kind that aren't ended early due to an affair or a deceptive spouse or anything like that. So when you hear about falling birth rates and the collapse of civilization, you should know that the people who want to destroy civilization are going to destroy themselves first. And while that's not necessarily an ideal state of affairs, it's, better than the alternative. And when you zoom out even wider, there's some other interesting data in the latest statistics on birth rates. According to preliminary 2025 birth rate data compiled by the CDC, which looks at the mother's ethnicity, white non-Hispanic birth rates have actually increased over the past year and now account for more than 50% of all known births. Meanwhile, births from virtually every other race and ethnicity have declined sharply, which is a big change from recent years. And that includes Hispanic births, Asian births, Black births, Pacific Islander births. The implication of this data is that foreigners aren't replacing the Native American population to nearly the extent that they were under the Biden administration. Closing the border and deporting illegal aliens has had a direct effect. It's reversed the demographic change that Democrats have been trying to engineer.
Very important correction to make here. It has not reversed the demographic change that Biden introduced, and it wasn't just Joe Biden that introduced that demographic change. It goes all the way back to the Hart-Celler Act. It has slowed the rate of demographic change and nothing else. We are still fighting a war of attrition, which means we are still losing. We're just losing a little more slowly for the time being. Give up hope and find the courage to use despair as your motivation. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu speaks of placing his army with a river at its back if things were looking particularly dire in a battle, and that they would fight like they have nothing left to lose. And that's the mentality that we need to embrace. I just want to remind you of the grim reality of our situation. 7% of the global population, when we were 30% 100 years ago, that's less than a quarter. That's a 75% decline. That is an extinction level rate of decline. We do not have the luxury of pretending that this condition does not exist. So you do need to feel despair, and within that despair, you need to find the type of courage and tenacity that only exists when you reach rock bottom and realize you have nothing left to lose. That is when you find the courage of a zealot. And that's the only kind of courage that will save us at this point.
Yeah, I've already acknowledged that those of us on the pro-marriage side can sometimes be too quick to discount the possibility that a young man gets married and winds up humiliated, betrayed, and broke because of it. You know, we sometimes talk about marriage as though the divorce rate were 0%. On the other side, though, people like Tate talk about marriage as though the divorce rate were 100%, as if no couple in history has ever managed to stay faithful and monogamous till death do they part. He treats the potential downsides of marriage as guaranteed and the upsides as if they don't exist at all, but they do. And in fact, on second thought, the question, what will I get out of it, or what do I get out of it, is not entirely fair. Now, I can't say what you will get out of marriage because I can't look into your future. I can't control for every possible factor. I can't force you to choose the right spouse, nor can I force you or your spouse to do all the things in a marriage that are necessary to keep it stable and happy. Most of the time when a marriage falls apart, it can be that there's one clear bad guy who did something destructive and was betrayed the marriage. That can happen. Usually when a marriage falls apart, it's because you've got two people and neither of them were doing the things necessary to keep it together. And so I can't control for that. But I can say what you can get out of marriage, and what a great many men, billions throughout history, including myself 15 years in with 6 kids, have gotten out of it. So what you can get is the love, fidelity, and lifelong companionship of a woman who you love and who is devoted to you and to whom you are devoted in return. What you can get, what billions of men have gotten, are children you love and who love you, who carry on your legacy, your bloodline, and your family name. You can have a family that is stable and whole, one that gives you a sure sense of purpose every single day of your life, a family you live with and share your life with and serve and lead and raise. Okay, so you can get love, meaning, purpose, and legacy. That's what you can get. It's not an emotional argument because those are not emotions. Those are real things. Those are nothing less than the greatest things life has to offer. So what can you get out of it? I don't know. The greatest things in life is what you can get. There's nothing greater, nothing that can bring you more joy or make your life more worth living. So what you get or can get in a word is basically everything. But it should also be said that as men, our concern should not be only what we get. What do I get is a fair question. And if the answer were nothing, then you shouldn't do it. But it's a fair question. It should not be the only question. You know, Tate says he has kids anyway, so he doesn't need marriage. But, okay, well, what would his kids get out of him being married to their mother? Well, they would get a stable household with a father who's present every day, leading, guiding, and teaching them. Now, it's true that you can have kids without getting married. Plenty of people have done that. But all of the studies, all of the research, all of our experience as human beings show us that children are in a far better position with far better outcomes when their father is married to their mother and present in the home, providing not just financial support, but a daily example of how to live. I mean, all of the evidence shows this. That's what your kids get. Well, what do they get out of you sleeping with other women and refusing to be a stable presence in the home? What possible benefit does that bring to them? What do they get? If you want to live a meaningful life as a man, if you want to be a great man, you need to be motivated by more than just a quest for what you get. There has to also be a sense of obligation and duty. That's what's driven every great man in history.
Yeah, so the men who are sidestepping marriage and concerned about being divorce raped, they're asking these questions not because they're trying to serve themselves, but because they were already approaching these ideals to which Matt is appealing now. And that strategy was being turned against them using the courts. The final conclusion is slightly illusory. Like, these men are fully aware of what he's saying. Matt just does an about face where he, in the beginning, recognizes the systematic and structural aspects of the legal system that are undermining the ability of men to securely marry a woman and create a family. And then he just goes in the end and talks about all the ideals as if those constraints don't exist. The other thing I want to mention is that birth rates aren't just affected by marriage. Say, for example, the government forces the entire population to take an experimental drug and censors any medical data that suggests that that experimental drug affects birth rates or is causing mass terminations among those who take it. Well, that can also help the birth rate decline. Say people do get married and they do have children, and then those very same courts support children castrating themselves. That can also affect birth rates. So there's numerous attack vectors that exist here. And I understand where Matt's going in the end, and those virtues are real. It's what we should be reaching for, but we should be reaching for them within a context of reality. And that's what men are doing. And that's why men are questioning marriage in the first place. Until we eliminate the constraints that are causing marriage to be unstable, simply highlighting all of the virtues of marriage that we're all fully aware of, that's not going to change anything. Those are my closing thoughts. If you made it through this entire video, thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons and sharing this video to help the channel grow. And on a parting note, I have started a channel on Rumble. It's called Good Times, Great Oldies. I will be providing commentary on that channel that is about those who shall not be named, those who shall not be criticized on YouTube. You may have noticed that my previous video was taken down and I have received my first warning. Well, I really don't like my job and I would like to make money off YouTube, so I've moved that content over to Rumble. It won't be very active for the first month, but once I get this YouTube channel up and running and I don't have to work my super shitty job anymore, I will be putting a ton of effort into that Rumble channel. So you can go over there and check out my account if you want and follow it. I'm about a month behind on producing a lot of content, but I'm very excited to do that. Thanks again and be well.